Alrighty, so it's time to look ahead to next month's releases and get a look at what new games are coming up this September as summer starts to wind down and spooky season starts to creep in. And boy howdy, is September going to be a great month for horror fans. But we're also getting some lighthearted fare, a remaster, and at least one AAA heavy hitter, so no worries if you're not hopelessly addicted to the world of horror games or anything. But first, let's go ahead and kick this off with an exceptional looking boomer shooter called the Moros Protocol, dropping on September 4th for PC. Which is a pixel-based first-person shooter roguelite, and try as I might, I still get super excited for boomer shooters in this vein. But honestly, looking at the visuals here, I have to say this might be one of the best games of its type that I've seen in a while. Not just for capturing the visuals of yesteryear, but also freshening them up to look even slicker. Kinda like when we first saw Octopath Traveler come on the scene. At first I was put off when I saw the word rogue, but this is a roguelite, not a rogue-like. The distinction being that roguelites, even though you'll still be doing multiple runs from the beginning, you do get to carry over some progress like permanent upgrades or character unlocks. And I know that because I had to Google it while working on this script since I always get the two confused. And I would love to try this out on the Steam Deck, so I actually did hit up the developer to see if they kick me a key for it, and if so, then I'll probably put out a preview or impressions video, mostly to see how it performs on the Steam Deck, considering for now, this is only going to be on PC when it launches on September 4th. But next up, speaking of genres I absolutely love, we have the Souls-like action horror game Hell Is Us, releasing also on September 4th for PC, PS5, and Xbox. And unlike a lot of the games that I talk about in these videos where all I can do is mostly speculate, I actually have played a bit of this already since there's a demo that you can play right now on PS5 and I believe PC as well. And so far I have to say I find it totally intriguing how it's blending action, horror, and sci-fi elements together with some pretty nuanced mechanics. It seriously looks like someone just smashed Control and Dark Souls together and then sprinkled in just a little bit of Watch Dogs for good measure. And for a AA title, it sure is looking pretty so far, and it sports a semi-open world adventure. While its opening narrative and mystery are a little bit daunting, I'm definitely excited to spend more time with the demo having now gotten a taste of its combat, and I have a sneaking suspicion this one's going to make it into my library sooner or later. Moving on to something a little bit lighter, at least for the moment, we have a revival of Everybody's Golf the next day on September 5th for Nintendo Switch, PS5, and PC. And I have to confess, even though I've very much enjoyed arcadey golf games in the past, from the likes of Mario Golf, or What the Golf if that even counts, I've never played any Everybody's Golf game, despite its having nearly a dozen entries since the PS1 days. So this might be the one that I finally try out. And from everything I can glean from the trailer, it seems like even though the presentation is arcadey and it certainly has some wacky modes on offer, apparently the actual mechanics of play can be really nuanced as well. Beyond an assortment of play modes and customization, it looks to have about 10 different courses along with realistic weather conditions, and a day-night cycle, or I guess at least courses that will shift from day to night, which is a nice touch. Probably not a day one purchase for me, but it does always warm my heart to see old school series still alive and kicking in the modern age. And now turning back to horror for a moment, we have Bloober Team's latest creation, which is entirely their own, and that would be Cronos: The New Dawn, also dropping on September 5th for PS5, Xbox, PC, Switch 2, and Mac OS, which is not something I get to say very often. And I am very excited for this one. Cronos is a third-person survival horror game where you play as the Traveler, an agent working for an enigmatic organization known as the Collective. And your job is to extract priority targets from the past from before the event that led to humans turning into the monstrous orphans you'll be encountering. And one of the neat things that they're doing here is if you don't dispose of undead corpses properly, a living enemy can merge with a dead enemy to make it a more difficult version of that same foe, which kinda reminded me of the introduction of Crimson Heads in the RE remake. My only hesitation in grabbing this one day one is that I'm probably still going to be working on Metal Gear Solid Delta at that point, but everything I've seen so far looks great, and I might just have to risk letting Metal Gear drop into the backlog for a while. And I'm not just excited because it's horror, but also because I'm pretty confident Bloober's going to deliver on this one. Partly because I've already seen how masterfully they handled the Silent Hill 2 remake, but also they seem entirely confident in this. It's encouraging when developers show off tons of their game leading up to release, and their extended 10-minute showcase looks incredible. Provided they can get the core elements of survival horror right without lifting too much wholesale from the likes of Resi and Dead Space, I'm betting this will at the very least end up a cult classic. Next up, we've got the latest creation from Bennett Foddy with Baby Steps coming to PS5 and PC on September 9th. In Baby Steps, you'll play as Nate, an unemployed fail son without a whole lot going on in his life, until one day he discovers the mystical power of putting one foot in front of the other. Based on the trailer, this looks to be a more fully realized version of the sort of struggle core gameplay from Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. Although where that game was designed to be extremely difficult, rewarding, and more maybe memeable for lack of a better term, this looks like it has a more straightforward or at least traditional narrative. I mean, I'm sure it'll be just as hilarious and clippable as Getting Over It, but a 3D walking simulator sure has room for literally more fantastical missteps if Death Stranding is shown as anything. Probably not going to grab this one as soon as it launches since I'm still working my way through Death Stranding 2 and I can only handle one walking simulator at a time, but I'm definitely excited to see how it does out of the gate and what kind of hilarious moments people will be sharing online about Nate's stumbles. But now it's time to move on to what is probably pound for pound the biggest release of September in terms of mass appeal, and that will be Borderlands 4 hitting on September 12th for PS5, Xbox, and PC, with the Switch 2 version coming a little bit later on October 3rd. And I have to admit, I'm a little bit out of the loop on this one because while I've played every Borderlands game, I've only ever beaten the original. Every time I play one of these, I know what I'm going to get: a pseudo cel-shaded FPS romp with juvenile humor and a breakneck progression pace. And on paper that should be a no-brainer win for me, and yet, for whatever reason, I only tend to ever really like Borderlands titles, but I can't say I've outright loved any of these titles. But hey, maybe this will be the one to turn me around, because even though I've only ever been lukewarm on the series as a whole, I definitely respect what they do at Gearbox. And it is exciting to see how much each entry evolves, plus I bet it's going to look absolutely brilliant finally seeing a current-gen incarnation. Probably not a day one for me, and I'm betting for some series diehards they may wait for a sale as well, especially after Randy Pitchford's comments about the game's pricing saying, if you're a real fan, you'll make it happen. Which, I mean, yeah, in most cases that's a true statement for any fan of anything, I guess, but it is also a little bit alienating for those of us who might be on the fence. I mean, to be fair, he did clarify in a tweet that's not what he meant to say, but yeah, at a time when gaming's never been more expensive than it is, I can see why a lot of people took umbrage with this. Anyways, moving on to more spooky fare, we do have Dying Light: The Beast releasing on September 19th for PS5, Xbox, and PC, with PS4 and Xbox One versions coming later this year. And I absolutely loved the original Dying Light since its parkour system, day-night cycle, and open world were just so fun to play around in. Dying Light 2 didn't grab me as much and sadly ended up on my backlog, but I think this one's going to end up in my library for sure. Beginning initially as a planned DLC for Dying Light 2, instead the developers opted to make it a standalone experience after, sadly, the main story of the Beast was leaked by hackers in 2023. And what really excites me about returning to playing as Kyle Crane is that they've already said this experience will be shorter than both Dying Light and Dying Light 2. It's not that I don't appreciate big beefy games that are over 30 hours or something, but sometimes it is nice just to have a more digestible experience that I can knock out over a long weekend, rather than a huge drawn out story that I have to schedule play sessions for. Everything they've shown so far looks like it's hitting all of the right notes with the same melee-heavy focus and parkour traversal, and it'll be nice to see what Kyle's been up to since the events of the original Dead by Daylight. Taking a turn back towards horror, and one of the highest profile releases for the month, we have Silent Hill F releasing on September 25th for PS5, Xbox, and PC, or you can play it a couple of days early if you go for the digital deluxe version. And this is easily my most anticipated game of September, and one of my most anticipated games of the year. Silent Hill F is exciting on its own as the first mainline entry in the series in over a decade, but it's also notable for moving the Silent Hill experience away from the titular town itself into the Japanese town of Ebisugoka, which I am positive I am butchering. Set in the 1960s, the story revolves around a high school student Hinako, who must navigate a nightmarish town consumed by fog, all while solving puzzles and fighting various grotesqueries. From everything shown so far, they've absolutely nailed the themes, tone, and environment of Silent Hill, but like a lot of other players, I'm also a little bit concerned about how the combat's going to flow. Throwing in upgradable skills, weapon durability, and Soulsian combat is a bold choice. But to be fair, the devs have already said there are no firearms in Silent Hill F, so I guess it makes sense that mechanically they'd have to provide some other means of stressing the player's resource management. The only other thing that has me worried is whether or not there will be some clear line drawn between Silent Hill F and its predecessors. Even a subtle nod to The Order or White Claudia would be fine, I just hope it's not a spooky experience that just happens to be foggy where they just kinda slap the Silent Hill name on it. Early thoughts from other publications seem mostly positive, but I can't wait to find out for myself when this one drops, and hopefully it'll continue the positive momentum that Konami's been building with its Silent Hill renaissance over the past few years. But if you're not too keen on the psychological horrors of Silent Hill F, we have the much more approachable Sonic Racing Crossworlds, also dropping on September 5th for the PS5, Xbox, Switch, and PC. And while it doesn't have the same cooperative team racing mechanic, it does have its own unique hook in that while you're racing, you'll cross over into other tracks in the middle of a race. There's also a large emphasis on drifting to gain additional speed, kinda like Mario Kart. And beyond the standard Sonic characters, there will also be some guests joining the action, including Hatsune Miku, Persona 5's Joker, and Kasuga Ichiban from Yakuza Like a Dragon. Generally, I love playing arcade racers like this on the Switch, but a Switch 2 version isn't coming out initially, so I'm probably going to hold off on this one for now, even though it does look like a lot of fun. And finally, we have Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles coming in right at the end of the month on September 30th for pretty much every platform. And this is a remaster of the original Final Fantasy Tactics that features updated visuals and story elements, along with full voice acting in English and Japanese. And beyond that, there's also some quality of life improvements when it comes to the difficulty. Like I've mentioned before, I've mostly been hit or miss on tactics games, but I really would like to give this one another shot sometime. I'll probably stick with the original graphics though, since the enhanced version looks a little bit smudgy to me somehow. Still, I like that the tactics genre is alive and well for fans, and this should be a great jumping on point for anyone who wants a greater look into the world of Ivalice, which has been a setting for a variety of games in the Final Fantasy universe, and at least one I think technically outside of Final Fantasy with 2000's Vagrant story. So if you're after some tactics-flavored RPG action and missed this one the first go-around when it released way back in 1997, you'll get another shot at it come September 30th. But that's going to be it for this one. Are there any games that I missed or ones that you're personally just really looking forward to in September? If so, I would love to hear about it in the comments below. Naturally, as a horror fan, I am most looking forward to all the horror games that are coming out this month, like Silent Hill F, Cronos, and Hell Is Us as we get closer to spooky season, but honestly I think we still got a pretty good mix of releases across genres in September. Coming up on the channel, I'm still working on a list-style video about some of my favorite cheap but great Switch physicals, and beyond that, I'm honestly not sure, because as I'm recording this, I'm doing so right before I start brainstorming new ideas for September, so yeah, if there's anything in particular you would like to see covered on the channel, please do let me know, as I am all ears. As always, thank you so much for your time and hanging out here with me on the channel, as I very much appreciate it. Have an amazing day, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.